he already on the way?
And we are.
No, let's go ahead and start.
All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. We are here today for the regular meeting for the Board of Directors of the El Paso Area Transportation Services Local Government Corporation. Today is October 18th, 2023. The time is 1:31. And if we can now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. And Commissioner Leon, at this time, we have not had anyone sign up for public comment, but I don't know if anybody would like to at this time.
Mr. Estrada, can I say something during public comment?
You can, Judge, but you have to keep it short.
Yeah, I can do that. just to let everybody know that in the future, as we have our meetings, just so we can acquaint ourselves with our members' locations, that maybe we can have our meetings at your places as we move forward, because it's a long way to come here. I know it's a long way for me. I can imagine for you also. That's all I just wanted to bring up. Miguel and his crew will probably be getting a hold of your offices. Thank you.
And Commissioner, just so you know, when you all get to item number 7 on the agenda, I think that discussion is naturally flowing from that topic. So if you want to discuss it further on agenda item number 7, you can. The meeting location.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, then. Then the next item for review and approval are the minutes from the special meeting of October 4th, 2023.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
Make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. And this next agenda item is to discuss and take appropriate action on the Town of Anthony and the Town of Flint joining EPAT's LGC. I would ask if we can table this item only because we have not had a resolution that has been approved by the councils. We are anticipating Anthony would review and hopefully approve the resolution on October the 23rd. And then for Clint, that will be on November the 13th.
Okay, so these can be, we can include it on our next meeting?
Yes, sir.
Do we need a
motion to table? Yes, Judge.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right. The next agenda item is to discuss and take appropriate action on the election of corporate officers. And after having a discussion with legal counsel, we did identify that you all would be voting on your chair and your vice, actually just your vice chair, because only the commissioner can serve in that capacity. So it would be the vice chair.
Right. So you're free to make new officer positions if you want, but you don't have to. But since this is the annual meeting, this is when you would normally vote for chair, vice chair, secretary. The only other officer position you do have is the position of vice chair. That's when it's open because according to our bylaws, the chair of the EPATS board is appointed by the county. So today under agenda item number 6, you all should vote for a vice chair.
And our current vice chair is Michelle. Michelle, just so I know, Michelle would move to a regular board member, not the chair anymore.
Right, that's correct. So in this organization, the normal structure, or hierarchy where vice chair eventually becomes chair does not apply because of the way our bylaws are.
So hearing what you just said, I'll open the floor up to conversation to anybody who wishes to, I don't want to say run, but be appointed to vice chair. And do we have a secretary?
We were looking at the bylaws, and I think by default, the council of governments, myself would be the secretary. Unless any of you esteemed board members would like to serve.
So I'll open up the floor, and Jose, I wanted to wait for you, but I was overruled.
I apologize. I apologize. I try to be on time all the time, but especially when I know that you're going to be in meetings, so I apologize. Yeah.
So the floor is open to any suggestions that you all may have.
Mr. Chair, I'd be okay with continuing with the structure I have in place. I think it's worked well for us, and the board is in agreement. I nominate that Mrs. Garcia from Horizon City remain vice chair.
Any discussion? I'm in favor of that also. So do I hear a motion?
I would make that motion, sir.
As a second. Second. We have a motion, and a second. Any all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Secretary. And we do have a visitor. I appreciate you bringing. Is that Luna?
Yes.
Welcome to our
Say hi.
meeting.
We need to get her online.
She's getting shy. She's like, no, Daddy, no.
Not right now.
She's not like her dad.
Okay, so agenda item 7. This is to discuss and take appropriate action on the fiscal year 24 meeting calendar. And we have in the bylaws that we would meet quarterly, but due to the additional activity that's going on within the LGC and with discussion with staff from El Paso County, we're requesting to at least have placeholders the ability to meet on a monthly basis. And so if that were the case, this is what it would look like.
Can we advance the slide? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's not a-
Oh, sorry. I'm advancing it. I'm not sure why it's not. Let me do that again and see if it's going to come up. It's not. Okay, here we are. Nope, it's not doing it. Let me.
There you
Okay, so let me go back. Let me put it in presentation and see if that's okay. It's not picking up the presentation, so I'll just leave it in this view. But this is the schedule as we have it for each month. And so I don't know if there's any discussion on this, but this would represent every month for this fiscal year. Once a month for the rest of this fiscal year.
Annette, can all the board members have a copy of this?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Any discussion?
No, we would just cancel it in the event there was no
Mm-hmm.
need to meet. Or if there was, something that wasn't time sensitive, just roll it over to the next month.
Right.
So, Mr. Estrada, help me with the rest of the.
a motion to adopt the fiscal year 2024 meeting calendar as presented, and that's it.
And if I just may make one notation on December, it's actually the second Wednesday. I didn't put it in the week of December 18th, since it was closer to the holidays. But if you all wanted to keep it consistent, then we would need to move to December the 20th. But that's the only one that there's a variation on the.
Not the 13th, the 20th.
If you all want it that way, but if you want to have it sooner in December because of the holidays, that's why I moved it up.
So that's another possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Any discussion? Do I hear a motion?
So moved is.
We're also going to discuss locations.
Oh, okay, this is, thank you. One thing, and I think we brought it up sometime in the past, just briefly. As we move forward, I think that it's probably a very good idea, yeah, because it's fun. that we meet in your locations, that I don't think it's fair just coming here. So as we move forward, somebody will be contacting you, whether it's my office or somebody from Miguel's office, to make the arrangements. And I think the biggest hurdle is the transmission of the meeting.
Yes. Miguel Vendas, Multimedia Services Supervisor. So if we just need, if your facility can accommodate a virtual meeting, we will join virtually and put that on YouTube. And we would like to keep it that way so that we can, all the meetings will stay on the YouTube channel. And then if you do have one, we can reach out ahead, do a test, and then confirm that we are able to have.
So I don't know what the order will be. Apparently, do I need to make a motion before?
No, Chair, I don't think so, mostly because I don't think you guys have that information yet. I think you should just adopt the calendar like you all did. And then by default, meetings will be here at the county until Annette and each of the member entities work out, when it would be a good idea to go out to their locations.
But if we were to do one as soon as November the 15th, would there be an entity who would want to be considered first?
Do we have a host?
We're transitioning to a different system, so I would want to wait till that's up and running before we offer our facility.
I would kind of suggest that maybe after the meeting here,
Yeah,
perhaps,
after
and
that,
that way it
okay.
gives us time.
Okay.
To identify this.
Then we'll revisit at the beginning of 24.
Okay, did we have, I don't think we had a motion for them.
I think we had a motion and a second, but did you all vote?
Who was that? I'm sorry.
No, I don't think we voted.
Well, I'll second the motion.
Oh, Mr. Medina seconded the motion.
Who was it?
Yes.
London, okay. Commissioner, so you have,
We need a vote.
yeah, no,
Oh,
we
I'm
have a
sorry.
first and
Okay.
second.
All right.
So do we vote or do we?
No, we need to vote still.
Okay, in reference to the motion just made in different meeting places as of 2024,
As
all
well
in
as the
favor?
calendar. As well
as
as
per the calendar presented, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, so moving on to agenda item 8. This is also to discuss and take appropriate action on the formation of committees for fiscal year 24. This is based off of the discussion that we had at our meeting on the 4th of October. Mr. Landeros had mentioned that perhaps we could formalize some committees, such as the executive committee, the branding and marketing committee. I added bylaws and kept the ad hoc committee in there, but those are just suggestions. So if you all would want to consider formalizing these committees, I wanted to make that available to you.
I understood last week or our last meeting that Ms. Garcia and Mr. Landeros were in a committee.
Yes,
Do
the
we
ad
need
hoc.
more committees?
Well, I think that as we get further along the agenda, specifically our annual budget, we do need some assistance in deciding how some of these items are going to be paid, some of these expenses. And so maybe the executive committee would be a good forum to use at least one or two of the members to provide that insight. But again, these are just suggestions based off of the conversations that were had last meeting. So it's all up to you all if you want to have these committees.
Another two-person committee?
There would be two-person committees if necessary.
I'll open it up to the floor.
So I guess my question in terms of committees, do you need any bylaws or the ad hoc committee work better in that capacity?
Okay.
You're asking me? Wait, here, guys. So actually, each committee, could eventually enact its own bylaws. If it becomes a standing committee, kind of like in larger boards, they have executive committees, and I'm going to reference the NPO because I work with the NPO. They have their board meeting, the TPB meeting, but that's a large board. I mean, you're 20 plus, and you all are familiar with the NPO. So they have an executive committee where it's a smaller group of board members, and they deal with some of the technical, contractual, financial stuff, and then everything they do then goes to the big board as a recommendation. And then Mr. Landero sits on the TPAC, which is a technical committee of the NPO, where a lot of the people that truly understand planning and all that stuff meet recommendations to the board. I am certainly not recommending that you all have committees yet, other than the one that you enacted, the last time we met. But I think Annette put this on your agenda for today just to give you the opportunity to discuss if you all thought one is necessary, and if you did, since it's posted as an action item, you could create it today. But unless, and correct me if I'm wrong, and staff as well, I don't think there's an actual recommendation for a specific committee right now. It's just allowing you to know that because it's the annual meeting, usually, there are other committees that the group wanted to create. You can create a committee at any time, though. Doesn't have to be at this meeting. But usually housekeeping matters take place at the annual meeting. So it's there on your agenda just to give you the freedom to discuss the issue. But I'm not aware of any strong recommendation for a committee yet. I will tell you that part of the reason why there is now, and you've adopted a yearly a calendar where you meet monthly, is staff and Annette and even I kind of realize that you all have lots of issues coming up now, and I guess that's just part of the entity growing. So certainly I think now you have to, have a calendar where you meet monthly and then cancel when there isn't anything, that needs to be voted on. So eventually, EPATs will be large enough where you need, ad hoc and task forces, but whether you need one now is entirely up to you all.
I know that on the COG, I've served quite a few little committees. The finance committee was one, and should we or could we identify one or two people to assist the COG or assist the net with, or meet with them to bring information, reference the financial status of our corporation?
Well, and I liked Mr. Landeros' recommendation earlier this month, where he talked about the executive, because it kind of captured financial, but then also some other matters that at a higher level. So like I said, these were just suggestions. 2 of them came from Mr. Landeros, the other 2 I just threw in. But again, this is just all up to you to decide how you want to position yourselves for this year.
Mr. Chair, if I may, appreciate this being placed on the agenda. I do think that maybe an executive and finance committee would be helpful. I know that another item, I guess I envisioned when I asked for this item, I was thinking about 3 standing committees. Executive and finance to oversee a lot of the administrative and financial elements that come up on a day-to-day. I think one that staff would really benefit from is an operational committee, operations assistance. Speaks a little bit following that NPO analogy to like the TPAC being technical. So, the board had voted previously to allow myself as a director, when I was the director of planning, to work directly with the staff, because otherwise I wouldn't have been allowed to. But that's been beneficial because a lot of the questions and issues about operations and developing operations. Yes. Just a second. I know. I'm taking too long. I'm sorry. That might be helpful for them to be able to reach out to a committee and kind of have this impromptu meeting. There's an issue with this that we didn't see. How do we overcome and implement a solution with guidance and direction from that committee? And in the event that it's a major revision, we would need to bring that back to the board. We can also do that. And then the third would be that branding and marketing committee to just continually be aware of the promotion and brand identity development of the LGC as it continues to expand.
So we have the branding committee.
Right.
So you're recommending 2 more?
Executive and finance, and then operations.
And discussion from members.
So I think that following that lead is that if there's a necessity now that we're identifying to get ahead of the game.
Yeah.
And so I think if Mr. Landeros is going to make that motion, then I would.
So we are voting on establishing the meeting.
Yes, sir.
Not establishing the committee, not so much who will be in it. Okay, I'll second that motion.
What was the motion again?
It would be to
To establish 3 standing committees of EPATs: the Executive and Finance Committee, the Operations Committee, and the Branding and Marketing Committee.
The branding and marketing committee is separate from the ad hoc committee?
Right, so we would make it a permanent standing committee. Okay. So in case Barracuda and staff or any vendor regarding branding ever needed something worked out, you would just approach those 2 members from the board to go to the branding committee. I also don't know if there's value in discussing appointments to those standing committees today, so that we have them kind of set for the year. And again, kind of in the event that we don't need to, there's no need for the operations committee to meet, that they don't meet. But I do think that in my interactions over the past year and a half with staff, it'd be helpful for them to know, okay, we have this kind of high-level question about this operational issue. Let's go to the two members and let's get their guidance and let's get their concurrence as we move that forward. And I actually think that Mr. Medina, with his expertise in transportation planning, would be good to chair our operations committee.
So do we need motions insofar as chair in the way?
I think you do need motions, and I think you're going to need a motion. It's cleaner, I think, if you make a motion for each of the proposed committees. Branding committee's already been established, correct? Or is this a?
Well,
It was an ad hoc, so we would need a,
Yeah.
so we need one for that.
One that will, be the branding committee, branding and marketing committee. Yes, I think we need it's cleaner if we make a motion for each of those committees. And then clearly, unless you all feel otherwise, each of those committees will be advisory only, right? Or are we thinking about delegating actual authority to any of them? And I think we can discuss that later down the road. We can come back to the board with a motion to delegate certain authority. But for now, all of the committees that are mentioned are advisory only. And the reason that matters is they're not allowed to enter into any agreements or represent anything on behalf of EPATs.
They bring it back to.
It should always come back to the board. So, just making sure we're clear on that.
I think we've got Carl.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Carl Rimkus with Sun Metro. So just something you might want to consider is establishing your committees and grant the chair of the board the power to appoint the members. That way you can discuss amongst yourselves and then you don't have to have a board action for your committee appointment.
So we discussed it, I make the appointments.
That makes it a little bit easier logistically.
And it would also be good for Sun Metro as an ex officio to be on the operations committee. I mean, all of them really, but especially operations.
Okay,
I'd be comfortable with that.
on the ad hoc committee, is that really the branding and marketing committee?
It previously was, but now we would. So what's on the slide? Only the top one and the bottom one would remain, and then the two in the middle would be replaced by the operations committee.
Another option here, and clearly subject to what everyone else thinks. What if the motion today is a motion to approve moving forward with the creation of, and then it's these committees as identified by Mr. Landeros, and then that gives Annette and the chair and staff an opportunity to really work out the details, and then the official enactment of each committee can happen or creation of each committee happens at a subsequent meeting where everything's more laid out. Or if you're fine with the ambiguity right now, which is just 3 committees are created, and if we adopt what Mr. Rimkus provided, with committee members to be appointed by the chair, that works. But you're kind of just saying we're doing it. This is, the broad parameters, and then later on you will get updates on what's going on in those committees. Or if you phrase it just slightly differently, we're move forward with the creation. You've established that you agree that these committees need to be created. You give everyone that needs authority to investigate and game plan it, and then they come back to you, next month with this is how it's going to work. Both options, work. It's up to what you guys prefer.
Would it be okay that we are going to establish these 3 committees? One of them already exists. That I communicate with the board members and then bring that information back to our next meeting to vote on it, or how do we propose we go about this?
You could do that, and that's why the moving forward to create the committees gives you time to kind of do some behind the scenes reaching out to potential board members, and then also identify other entities that are not members of EPATs but who should be on a committee, kind of like Sun Metro, or for the operations committee. I mean, clearly county staff needs to be on that, but you can, once you have more time to think about it, you might think there are other entities in town who have this technical know-how. So it gives you time to do all that. But both options do actually, but you're a little bit less jumping into the deep end of the pool by saying we approve the motion to move forward with these committees, but bring it back to us for final approval. Yes, and then it might even give the committee or the members who are working on this time to think if there's any need to request for delegated authority. And if there is, we can look into how that can happen. Sometimes there's some authority that you can delegate, some that you can't. It's going to always kind of be my preference until I'm shown otherwise that nothing be delegated until you all, can approve, that you all retain oversight of anything that's, an actual transaction on behalf of VPATs, but subject to what everyone else needs. So they're very similar, but I just wanted to tell you, you can kind of work the motion, move forward with the creation of, to give everyone time to, kind of fill in the gaps. But I don't know.
I have right now the transportation planner. So I just want to understand, once we do the creation, it's still not taking away the current ad hoc committee, right?
Right. So
I know that we put it like it's going to be encompassed in the operations,
right.
But the people who are on the ad hoc committee is really more for the branding and marketing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why is ad hoc did we already create the branding and marketing and just need to rename it? That's what I understand it as, right? And then operations would be something different.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah. So we do have this ad hoc committee that we've already created, right, that you've all created. It can, that can just be renamed to the branding and marketing committee, although that committee was put together solely for the purposes of working with Barracuda.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And the members, the board members who volunteered to join, I think did it with that assumption, but now they're board members of a standing branding and marketing committee. And then at a subsequent meeting, we'll come back and ask you to dissolve that ad hoc committee anyway, and it becomes this.
Now, as we move forward, do I run it, or do we run into any kind of walking quorum by communicating with each other? Okay, we've got these committee vacancies. How do you feel about if I was to call the different members to see how they feel about volunteering?
Right. Well, you do have to be careful about how you do those, contacts. But you're free to do so. And that's part of the reason why it makes sense to come back at a subsequent meeting and where you've already discussed it with the board members and you have an idea who wants to be on each committee, because you can say, I've spoken with these individuals, they want to be on it. But to answer your question, when you do reach out to each committee member or board member, for this or any other purpose, you're free to do so as chair and to discuss any issue that impacts the entity. But what I would recommend is that you never relay messages between one or the other, right? So if you speak with one board member, say, look, this is what I'm thinking of doing. I'd like for you to serve on this committee. And you can say, and I'm also going to talk to someone else, but never, agree to anything that's not here. But you will have a consensus. But the walking quorum thing happens when you meet with one and then the other, and then by the time you meet with the third one, you tell them what everyone else is thinking and how you want to go along with stuff. That's walking quorum. But if you're just reaching out and saying, hey, I'd like for you to, are you interested? This is what it will do. And someone says yes, that's not a walking quorum.
Okay. And if we can have maybe today, that way it'll save some time. If you look at the possibility, the openings that you see there, that, I might be interested in this one or that one, then, and I'll also include myself in one because we're very few members. So if you are interested in one of these committees, if you can let me know, then we can move forward.
And Mr. Serna has a.
I have a question. Jesus Serna, transit planner. Is it okay if we wait till we got Anthony and Clint? That way we have more selection, more board members, because they're going to have to appoint a director. So should we wait till after the November?
Well, if they join, they'll bring us up to 7. Our quorum number jumps up to 4. So then at that point, we could add any of them to the committees. We could have 3 members, and we wouldn't run any quorum issues.
Okay.
So
yeah, you can do it now, and then you're right, add them later.
Mm-hmm.
Expand the the size of the committees. So committees don't rush in the bylaws yet, right? Because membership's going to grow.
So I've gotten into the weeds a lot here. I just want to make sure that for today's meeting, that any interest that you all may have on which committee to let me know on the record now. And then we may have further communications as we move forward. Would that work?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Yes.
So, Mr. Chair, I guess I would certainly volunteer for the operation committee. You all want to do that. And then I think in any other capacity that you would need me, I would certainly also volunteer.
Appreciate that. Any other member for the any other committee?
I'm happy to stay on the branding and marketing committee, and I'm also interested in the executive finance committee.
Rena?
I would say, just as mentioned previously, public transit staff for the operations committees.
It's gonna be at home.
You're gonna give me a
Right, I'm like, you guys don't
You
have
have
a
a
choice.
choice.
Yeah, this is your job, right?
Okay. I think you're right.
Mr. Chair, I can also work for the county now in operations as well.
So it looks like we have 2 for each right now. Is that correct?
And sorry, and Jose said operations as well as the branding?
And branding.
Okay.
Do we have any leftovers or anything?
We have the executive, so we have one person for executive finance, which is Michelle. Yeah, 2 for, so maybe Michael would want to do executive also.
Mr. Medina, which one did you say?
So I certainly would volunteer for the operations, and if needed, I would also be the executive.
You can list me as an alternate for any of them.
Mhm.
I'd be glad to also assist.
Chair, I could volunteer for the branding and marketing or any other, but that would be kind of
Branding and marketing. And did you mention another one?
any other as needed, but
Oh.
that would be the only.
And we'll formalize that at the next meeting.
Right. I think the motion today is a motion to move forward with the creation of an executive and finance committee, an operations committee, and a branding and marketing committee. And by doing that, you've started the wheels of in motion.
I'll make that motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So we'll move on to agenda item 9. This is to receive, we're going to receive a summary presentation for task order 5, which is the implementation plan for El Paso County Rural Transit System. And this will be from the Texas A&M Transportation Institute. Hello. And,
Yes,
A
sir.
question, Mr. Gutierrez, would it make sense for us to discuss and maybe read in item 17 at the same time regarding the City of Socorro's decision to EPAT, because it might affect the service levels that we're going to discuss in item 9?
well, actually on number 14, we cover that in terms of the reduction
Oh,
and
okay.
removal of the traffic.
Perfect. Oh, okay.
Maybe 14 and 17 together, maybe?
Okay, so then, is Michael going to present or?
Oh, like the presentation,
Uh-huh.
you want him to share?
Well, no, I can do it. I just didn't know. Let me go ahead and pull that up.
Yes.
I'm so sorry.
And I know I have 50 minutes or so. So
You say
I'm
50?
No.
50.
Oh.
50. And I'm gonna be brief. Try to be brief. And this is a new project. It's still ongoing, but it's ending by the end of this month. So we have almost all tasks completed and also some results. The document, the final report is about, sorry to say this, but it's about 200 pages or so. So it's gonna be difficult to talk about all this in 15 minutes. I'm gonna go just to the task by task and the results we found.
I'm sorry, it doesn't let me do presentation mode, so I'm just gonna.
No, that's actually the one that is next.
Okay, would you like me to move on to the next one?
Yes. No, well, this is, no, I mean, the next speaker is gonna be Michael, and he's presenting this.
Oh, that's the second one. That's the financial, the 5-year strategic plan. This is the task order 5.
think I have, I don't.
I have it here.
Moment. I only saw, and I apologize, I only saw two.
Those, I don't know, did Michael send it?
Oh,
Or did?
Michael, if you can you present from where you are?
He has it in his use.
I have the USB.
Oh, I don't know, we can just connect straight to the, there's Michael.
Yeah, so David's presentation,
I copied you in the email. Maybe you can.
sure. Okay, let me give it a share here and see if this solves the problem.
Thank you.
How's that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So I mentioned this is the implementation plan for Paso County Rural Transit System, and we started exactly last year. And I'm going to jump directly to the project purposes. To develop an implementation plan for EPCT that improves the transit experience and mobility of all people in the region through a detailed implementation guidelines and tools that can be directly applied to El Paso County Transit region. In this one, we actually in our kickoff meeting, we agreed with El Paso County Transit staff to just focus on the fixed route. Also, because this is going to be a plan for fixed routes, will require ADA paratransit, and then also general public demand response systems. We actually included part of the flexible routes in as a mode on this GPDR system. Next one, please. So task one was all about the scenario reassessment, right? We actually had some planning studies previous to this implementation plan, and it was we call it phase one and phase two, when we actually provided some planning guidelines for stops and shelters, and also the locations, the right locations, and also the reconfiguration of the system. I have some maps where I think I will just continue. These two phases actually were, the phase number two actually was completed right before the pandemic. It was, I remember it was March, April when we were handling with that, and we were closing out the project. So ever since that, we needed a reassessment, and it's the changes, the most obvious or important changes were the El Paso Amazon warehouse, the East Lake, Horizon, Darrington, and Rojas area rapid development, Montana Avenue corridor, which now includes new BRT or Brio line, and some road capacity improvements in Montana that actually influence on the decisions for Route 20 specifically. And then the transit-oriented development activity in Horizon City, and the overall impacts of COVID-19, as I mentioned, on ridership partners. And I will show how we are now. And you please go to next, please. So in terms of our findings, well, we actually assessed all the region. I have a map with all the routes. I think we have been showing this several times, so we'll skip it for now, but it's included in our report. And then we decided, or one of the first suggestions was like putting hands on the ADA public transit service, right, as soon as possible. You have been hearing about this in previous meetings, and also we did an initial, in this phase, or this task, we did an initial estimate on ADA paratransit ridership, around 28,000 trips per year in the region, and it was readjusted. I will later on show that readjustment. and we decided to, we calculated 3 or 4 vehicles to cover the ADA paratransit demand in the region. And then one of the suggestions were on this task was to combine the ADA with general public demand response service. Next, please. I'm sorry about this kind of small down, but it's part of also the suggestions. We came up with a plan, an implementation plan for ADA paratransit. We actually explored 2 different options. I know this project was dynamically changing because of the decisions that the committee was and the EPATs also were deciding during the process. So let me tell you that now it's a combination of these 2. The implementation plan for you can go to the next, please. Initially was starting with the service on January, this next January, which is probably happening, but it depends on how fast we move on that. But also Plan B is actually getting more what we actually we're gonna have. I think probably it depends on how the agreements with the current contractor is or are, and then this one will be finally updated by the end of this month to see how everything, the decisions will be reflected on this report as well. And you go to next, please. Now, task 2 was what we propose is develop a corridor-specific general strategies for implementation regarding the fixed routes. Every single corridor, we explore the concept of operations, standard operations procedures, the responsibilities of various partners, resources needed, and marketing, and also to be complained on ADA and Title VI, and it's a detailed implementation timeline. With this, well, the first thing we look at on our proposal was, okay, how is ridership looking, right? So we compare fiscal year 19, and sorry, I made a mistake on the title, to be fiscal year 19 versus 23, and you can see the pre and post pandemic ridership. So we decided, okay, the numbers are getting back to the pre-pandemic conditions, and also you can see the new implementation of Route 31 is actually working. We had some downs in Route 20 based on the new transit or transfer center that was open in Far East. So for obvious reasons, some riders, they were get used to connect to all the way to the east side terminal, and now it's not possible, so they need to pay a little bit extra, and that this could be one of the reasons of how ridership in Route 20 is not as good as the other ones. You can see, just take into account, this one is till July 23, and in June you adopted the free fare plan, so it is, we actually, that's why we just compared to July, and you can see the exponential increase, right, in ridership on most of the lines. Next one, please. And we focus on these 3 because of this task 2 is about the changes. What happened with when you implement a change, right? And those are 20, 30, and 31 were the ones that we know the pre and post conditions. So one of the suggestions, or some of the suggestions, were like customer satisfaction to work on that. We recommend the Paso County Transit staff to obtain, review, and act upon feedback. We actually implemented some surveys, onboard surveys. All the results are also in the report, and some suggestions are also to use the transit capacity and quality of service manual to decide which quality of service indicators you can measure, so you can know the pre and post conditions and see if your changes were correct or the way you planned, right? So these indicators could be frequency, service span, service days, access, or reliability, passenger load, and travel time. And also we suggested the staff of Paso County to discuss and engage more with operators, the contractors, subcontractors, and the riders itself, and committed partners. In this case, could be also Sun Metro and the MPO, because we found out that some of the feedback, like really important feedback we received from the bus operators, because they are the ones who know what's going on. They probably know the names of each one of the passengers. So they gave us a level of detail, like really important. Also, riders give us some important information, and everything. We summarize that in the report. And also to include the social media, we couldn't find a lot of social media ads or any something that could be easily improved, and also making this part of in the news, local news, and also include an improvement on the website. Those are some of the suggestions. Next, please. And also to review the public participation process. Not only Paso County Transit staff, but I think the EPATs could also be part of this. And it's something we mentioned on the report. And also we came up with a template with fixed route or by fixed route on the implementation plan. And in this is an Excel file that I'm showing just an example. This one is just I cannot read from here, but realignment and reschedule, yes, route. So if you are doing that in your change of in any of the routes, you have a checklist, and then you can do like one by one to make sure we are putting all our recommendations into place, and also the dates are complete with a framework for all this. So we did this for every single route, and also different situations that can be occurred, right, during some changes. And also information and marketing materials. We recommended some strategies for marketing materials, so you can have better communication with the riders when you implement a change. Next one, please. On task 3, well, it was the technology enhancement strategies. We identify and prioritize the technology enhancements based on the needs of the Paso County Transit, and we propose to review operation management and also improve customers' information. Those were the goals, and the foundation system enhancements included tech assistant and general transit fit specification files. I will define this later on. Next one, please.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Do we have Wi-Fi up and running now?
Yeah, that's the next one. Actually.
There we go.
Next one. Yeah. So the first thing is we evaluated the current conditions for technology. We found out onboard security cameras, which is something really good, and listening mechanisms, electronic fare box, recently implemented, or I think almost all vehicles have that, right, by now. And also the Wi-Fi access. I was working with Jesus, and I know it's in process, but it's almost ready to go. And communication technology dispatch using CB radio, citizen band radio. That's what we found from the vehicles, and in general the Paso County Transit technology. And then we tailor that based on what is available right now. And we suggested some, now that you're going to have Wi-Fi access, that opens the door for different type of technology like automatic passenger counter, and which is a little bit independent, but you can also use the Wi-Fi access, automatic vehicle location, advanced communications technology using wireless, radio, or even the internet, or some applications, security camera system on board and on shelter at shelters. We recommended that. Next one, please. And computer aid dispatch and scheduling. Now vehicles have Wi-Fi. As I said, it opens the door to a lot of applications. Electronic fare payment, something that was suggested by riders actually, because in one of the surveys, one of the riders wanted to pay directly with a debit card. It's not ready, but it has potential. I mean, it's just a matter of working on that. You have most of the technology already implemented, and it's just to study the possibilities there. And weather information systems is also some tool that can be implemented really easy, and the use of GIS tools that are actually not needed of a license. We proposed based on the fiscal year 23, what we are, and then the short-term implementation, how everything is connected, and how you implementing some technology opens more options for different other technology, and medium-term plan and the long-term plan. Everything is in the report, and we specifically look at it. It says tailored to El Paso County Transit because we try to pick the technology that is low cost and also easy to implement, and it doesn't require a lot of maintenance. So for each one of options I mentioned, we define the option. We saw the overall functionality, the benefits for El Paso County, and also the cost. So the cost is also part of this task. And talking about GIS tools, something that El Paso County was really interested in is the General Transit Fleet Specification files. This is something that is starting May 23. The FTA will require for annual submission of statistics and GTFS files is a set of files that it has all the information about your stops, your every single stop. Well, this is probably the best example with Google. It's not the only one, the only platform you can use, but it's as you can see, GTFS files are typically 7 files that are coding for getting or extracting all the information of a system. Sun Metro has already, this is an example actually for Sun Metro. As you can see, we developed all these files for El Paso County Transit. It tells you the agency information, the fare, stop times, and schedule, how to get from origin and destination using transit. If you do it right now, you will see a gap in between Sun Metro and South Central District Transit. But with these files, well, they are ready to be published. We actually need some, I think, legal review on that, but it's something we also submitted on as part of task 3. Task 4, it was all focused on the ADA paratransit implementation strategies. And this is what we promised. It was the definitions and criteria, span, service, and service area, resources needed, the FTA requirements. Next one, please. And some of the findings, well, we submitted a tech memo that is now a chapter in the report about the service days, hours, and the definitions. Well, when you have a fixed route transit route, then the service needs to be provided, right? And then it's 3/4 of a mile in each one of the corridors, and you can also add some small areas that are not right in the depending on the route configuration. You sometimes have some these called down hulls that it can be also covered by the same service, and then we included the policy for next day reservations. Is something that needs to be implemented. The fares, the recommended was not more than twice the current single trip fare. I think we proposed a $3 fare for this, and no restrictions or prioritizations based on trip purpose, and also suggested that the absence of capacity constraints. So the agency may not limit the number of trips a person may take. Okay, next one, please. And also an important document on this is it was an appendix, and it's Will Rodman actually worked on this one. It is a draft for the scope of work for EPATS Access ADA Fire Transit Service 2024 is something that is it covers all the general definition, overview, and access service, etc. 17 items. And it's really is a good guide or almost ready to be serve as a request for proposals for any vendor, right? So this is something also we submitted as part of the report. Next one, please. Also, in this task, also we readjusted everything based on more specific information about those donut halls and other areas that we didn't took into consideration in task 2. So the ridership was readjusted. Remember, it was almost 28,000, so it was readjusted to 21,000 in 2024. And annual ridership per capita is 0.14, and the estimate. And then we divided in several areas: north area, east area, and south area, which we have like 5 different routes in the south area. But we came up also with the same number of vehicles. I think it's 3 and preferably 4, but I think 3 will be okay. And some of the finalists, 1.5 passenger per trip per revenue hour is something we estimated for this type of service. And I think Michael presented some of this information last meeting. And next one, please. Okay, yeah. The final task was the general public demand response service implementation strategies. On this, we covered the concept of operations, standards of operating procedures, responsibilities of various partners, basically something similar to the ADA Power Transit, right? Resources needed and marketing ADA and detailed implementation timeline. Next one, please. Yeah. And the findings are, well, we describe each, like the general public demand response type of service and how many alternatives you have for using this type of demand response service. It is including dial-a-ride. It has all details about the implementation of the dial-a-ride and microtransit feeder to a fixed route and point or route deviation. If you remember, I told you that part of the route deviation could be implemented in this type of service. And so we also took we're focused on the geographic equity is something we wanted to cover. That as I said, or the project definition, the objective is to improve mobility for all people, right? So this is something we also cover in this task, and we also suggested some performance of the GPVR services and to measure the efficiency of and productivity as a metric. Next one, please. And following with the suggestions on this for EPATS, well, the county, it's actually some guidelines that we took from previously from our phase 2. It's just basically a reminder that still applicable to this. It's something you can find on the last report on the shelter and configuration and stops. To improve the service level of service. Sorry, and this is a list of several guidelines that we already suggested. And next one, please. And then we also included the steps to plan and design the service, including the evaluation of the service, area factors, determination of GPDR zones and types and zone course purposes, development of performance metrics and goals that could be implemented for this, and the service design for a highest or for the highest performance in case you want to invest more in this type of service, right? Next one, please. And then we also, as suggestions, we suggested a plan, GPDR plan and design. We avoid to use fiscal years and months, so we just put a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can discuss this internally and find the right or the correct fiscal year or period to implement this type of service. Next one, please. I think this is all. I hope I did it in 15 minutes, probably not, maybe more. And as I mentioned, if you have any questions, I can answer as much as I can. Our co-worker Michael is also online, and the report will be ready. Well, it's internal review. We send it to communications before sharing with everyone, and it's gonna be ready. I believe by probably next week, right? So you can have some time to review, and then we can get all your comments. And I know it's tedious, I know it's a lot of information, but it's something that hopefully it helps EPAS and Paso County Transit to make decisions. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
I just have one question,
yes.
maybe a lawyer question.
All right.
But with this presentation and the report coming, so what we're really talking about is now moving into the era of mobility as a service.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, correct. Yeah, and then as I mean, 15 minutes, as I said, is probably not a lot of time, but I'm willing to present if you have some, after reviewing the whole document, if you want something specific to be talked, to be covered, I can also keep coming to the meetings and provide more information with more time for that specific area, right? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so our next agenda item, which is 10, will be an update from El Paso County Transit staff on ADA paratransit implementation.
Good afternoon, Board. Raina America Transportation Planner. If you could go to the next slide. So this is just
That's not it, right?
yes.
Okay.
I'll go back further. You will see steps that have been taken regarding getting on track as we propose to have ADA paratransit begin on the 1st of January. So beginning in June, staff met with Sun Metro and TransDev. Sun Metro isn't able to, through an interlocal agreement was what we were trying to do to have them operate ADA paratransit for EPATs. Operationally right now, Sun Metro is unable to do that. So then we moved on to discussion with TransDev, which in case nobody knows, First Transit changed their name to TransDev. So anytime we say that now, that's who we're speaking on. And so they were willing to go ahead and do that for EPATs. Through what we wanted to do was an amendment to the current contract that we do have with them, El Paso County has with them. But unfortunately, our purchasing department said that it was the amendment would not be allowed because in the RFP there was no language for ADA paratransit or even language to say they could provide that service at a later time if we decided to, have that come along. So we also did, with our purchasing department, a sole source procurement request to try to convey why we thought TransDev would be like the only provider to be able to handle that right now, and that too was denied on the same basis. So it just was no language in the RFP for that. So then our next steps and our next options, which we're currently going through, is to have EPATs contract services with TransDev for the ADA paratransit services directly, and then El Paso County would go into an interlocal agreement with EPATs so that we could contract ADA paratransit services from the LGC. And so it's still going to be a temporary situation just for the 1 year while we still work on the RFP for commuter bus, ADA, and for the general public demand response services. So just wanted to bring you up to date on all the steps that we've taken. We're still shooting to have that January 1, 2024 start date for ADA paratransit. And what's going on in this in the meantime is Sergio is actually drafting the agreement between EPATS and TransDev, and then on the county side, we're having our county attorneys draft the interlocal agreement between us and EPATS. And so pending those agreements, that's when we would know more if the January 1 start date will stick, which is still what we're shooting for, or if it might be maybe a couple months off depending on execution of the agreements. Do we have any questions?
Let me just clarify, I was still a little unclear as to Wi-Fi. Is that actually working now?
The Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
We have an update, because you know how we have an update from transit staff later. We can mention that now, but it should be implemented soon. But I was going to allow us just to give that update later.
Okay, so there's something coming.
Yeah,
I'll try to be more
it's
patient.
still the last. It's the last one where you asked us to give you an update on any of our projects or what's going on. So it'll be, I think, item 19. Okay.
All right, so then we'll move on to agenda item 11. And this is where we're asking for the board to discuss and take appropriate action on the selection and adoption of the transit service plan.
Is this the old one? Because this doesn't have the updated slide that I sent earlier.
Thought it was, but let me verify.
It's also item,
It should be item 11.
what we just discussed was item 11.
No, that was 10. I gave a quick update, and then item 11 is going to be the board to officially adopt a service plan for fiscal year.
Right, in the agenda I'm looking at, the update you just gave was,
The implementation plan
okay, so 11 is a transit service plan.
is the fiscal year, transit service plan for the fiscal year 24, which is needed for your contribution agreements.
Let me go ahead and, let me just to make sure that I didn't do this one. I'm gonna put this one.
Rena, does this impact Socorro?
The service plan
Yeah.
at this time?
Do we need to visit the other item first, then this, or? No.
I don't think so, because this is just what EPATS plans to do with the current services that we have or what we want to implement. And then when you guys get to the other items, it's going to be discussing more in depth on how we go about removing or reducing services.
Sorry about that.
Okay, there we
This is
go.
it, right? Sorry about that.
That's good. So, Rain America Transportation Planner. So, I believe in July, TTI presented some options for the board to choose from for this fiscal year 24 service plan. And we got it down to 2, but nothing was officially adopted. And so we need the board to officially adopt whether it's ADA paratransit only and Sunday service. And the way we have it now is still ADA paratransit beginning on January 1 and with Sunday service on remaining routes starting April 1st. And the reason why we kind of staggered it is just so that we're not overloading the riders and so they have time to actually prepare and even, first learn an ADA paratransit system and then later you would see more Sunday service. And so next slide, please. You guys have a handout. I have it here in front of us, but it's what you're seeing on the screen is just the latter portion of that handout, which is showing the local contribution amounts for ADA only versus ADA plus Sunday service. And so what you might see is that actually by adding Sunday service, your local contribution amount is less than because we would be able to use more of our CMAQ funding, which has a higher federal share.
It's a new service.
Right.
We don't
It's a new
operate
service, so we can charge to the CMAQ funds. So we need the board to decide ADA only or ADA and Sunday service.
So it's fair to, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah.
So is it fair to say then that we can offer more service at a lower cost to each of the members if we go at this point with ADA and Sunday service?
Yes.
I'm sorry, that's because CMAQ would then apply.
Right,
Okay.
because we're going to use some of the operating assistance to start up the new service, and that's the reason.
But Sunday service comes into play
April.
In April?
Yes, I want to actually, I don't know if there's able, Sergio, just to kind of put it out there that I would still want to stagger the implementation. So let's hypothetically say we don't start ADA on January 1. Maybe it's off by a month or two because of the execution of the agreements. Then I would want to start the Sunday service Sundays on the other routes a couple of months after the ADA implementation. But this is what we're still shooting for.
Any discussion? So the two possibilities are with Sunday service, no Sunday service. Okay. And the recommendation from the staff is that we do have the Sunday service at a future date, added in a future date.
So the board needs to vote ADA only in fiscal year 2024 or ADA and Sunday service. Sunday service would be staggered after the ADA implementation, but what you're seeing is that your ADA only local contribution is higher because we're pulling more from our 5311 funds. But if you do ADA and Sunday, your local contribution amount is less than because we're able to use our CMAQ funding.
So do I hear a motion?
I would make a motion to approve the ADA and Sunday service proposal with ADA starting January 24, and Sunday service starting after that at a date to be determined by staff.
Second that.
To give them the flexibility that Elena was mentioning.
We have a motion and a second.
Sure, I'm sorry. I think it is important to add the following to the motion. What Mr. Landero stated, we will be adopting that, motion to approve and adopt the paratransit and Sunday service, right? Starting.
Okay. ADA starting January 24, and then Sunday service starting after that at a date to be determined by staff.
Okay. So take that and then add as the transit service plan for fiscal year 2024. I want it to be clear that this is your transit service plan for the year, because everything else you do kind of emanates from this. So what Mr. Landeros just said, that is what you are adopting as a transit service plan for fiscal year 2024.
Mr. Landeros, are you okay with the
Yes, that's perfect.
modification and the second also?
Yes, sir.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
That's a sigh of relief for
Right?
staff.
I'm like,
All right.
None
But
of
we're just going to enjoy for a few seconds. Okay. Agenda item 12. This is to discuss and take appropriate action to allow the chair, after legal review, to negotiate and execute a transportation service agreement between EPATS, LGC, and TransDev, and to sign all other related documents.
So can staff provide the background for this? And then I just.
this was kind of what, you mentioned.
Yeah, so based on the conversations that in the presentation the staff offered in the updated item 10, the chair's office and myself and county staff had a conversation with TransDev 2 weeks ago. The idea here is that the LGC is given flexibility to procure services. By statute, the only thing we have to go out for formal procurement on are construction projects, but similar to how we've onboarded legal and marketing services, we have the ability to just contract directly. And so to gain the flexibility of having a private company, we are proposing here for the LGC, to hire TransDev to offer paratransit services, because the county internal process would not allow the county to expand for that service. So we as EPATS would hire TransDev. We would be effectively the primary contractor to El Paso County to provide paratransit service, but that responsibility would then pass through to TransDev as our subcontractor effectively. And this would be temporary for the next year while county staff works on developing the new RFP for transit service beginning the following fiscal year. So this is just a stopgap measure, but it really speaks to some of the flexibility that I think the LGC offers us. And, just an idea in case there's other needs that emerge throughout the region and through each member community, each member agency, might be something to keep in mind that we might be underutilizing at this point. But I think it's because we're getting our feet wet as an LGC some of the flexibility you have with regard to onboarding services.
And these agreements that are signed by the chair would come back to the board, just, no?
No, I think that's why you wanted this item, Mr. Molinos, Rent and Marriage Transportation Planning, because we want to make sure that when the agreements are ready to go, that we don't necessarily have to wait for the next board meeting. So this would allow you to sign that agreement, and then it's effective as soon as it's signed. And so it's, I guess, approval prior to.
Understood, but my point is that the agreements that I do sign come back to the board
Right.
just as a matter of routine.
Yes, absolutely. And so Reina described it perfectly. What staff is asking that you all do is that you delegate for this particular contract. It's not for any other contracts, just this contract, authority for the chair to sign it once it's developed and reviewed by legal counsel, so that we don't have to wait until the next board meeting. Obviously, even after it's signed, Chair, I think we would bring it back as a report just so they know exactly what was signed and what was entered into. But we are requesting some flexibility in that delegation authority. And I've seen that done elsewhere. It's not, certainly not a best practice. You don't want to delegate that authority, for everything. But in this particular instance for this contract, staff thinks that that's a good way to go about it. Question I did have for staff, do we know yet what the amount would be like with, in the contract between EPATS and TransDev for the paratransit services? Do we have a number?
Yes, I sent that. And
Is it like, see, because I have three options.
so it'd be option 3 where we provide the vehicle. So it'd be the last one.
What's the dollar amount on that?
The what?
What's the dollar amount on that
The
option?
startup amount is 112,000. It's a one-time startup fee for the software and what else and what they need to purchase to get that started. And then I believe it's about 800,000 for annually. What is it? What do
Yes,
you have?
yeah, so it's, option 3 is 855,000, $353,000.
Total, including the capital stuff that he.
With the 112,000?
Mhm,
No,
that
the
include that?
total he would have to add those two.
Oh, okay, so we're looking at something closer to $1 million.
Yeah.
Then.
Wow.
And I say that as a political science major. Don't ask me about numbers, obviously. But so, and since we're here at the board meeting, the contract is going to have to be drafted in a way, just so you know, because EPATS doesn't have that money, right? The board does not have that amount of money. As a matter of fact, the balance is 167,000 and some change after that. So, but by entering into the contract directly, us with TransDev, we're liable for that amount. So even when Reina was explaining it to me, it makes sense, because Mr. Landeros is absolutely right. As the LGC, you will have a lot of freedom in how you contract for services and goods. Your hands aren't, I don't want to say tied, but you don't have to go through the procurement statutes like the county and municipalities do. But we need to figure out a way how in these contracts we will contract away any liability that you have, you meaning EPATS, for the amount of the contract. And that might be in the contract between EPATS and the county.
And they will just have to ensure timely payment back to the
Yeah.
county.
Yes.
Because it's gonna be a cash flow issue where we're gonna have payment due to TransDev, and then we're gonna have to come back in on that. So I think as the county attorney's office drafts that, and then Sergio, as you draft that, as you review that for EPATS,
Right.
just ensuring that those payment terms out to TransDev and then the reimbursement terms for payment from the county, that those are as aligned as closely as possible so that we don't run into any issues where we drain any bank accounts.
So and maybe we're brainstorming here a lot, and some of this we can do after the meeting. But I think it's, but for this board, as your attorney, clearly I would never advise you to sign a contract that you don't have the funds to take you, right? Because if something were to happen on the side with EPATS and county, which clearly we know there's a great relationship there, and this, but you are, after all, two separate legal entities with two separate legal counsel. I'm going to need assurances from the county that there will always be a way for us to turn around and pay Transdev. And in the event that that's not there, there has to be some type of mechanism for EPATs or even for Transdev to go to county just to secure this board and this entity. So that can be done, but I'm just kind of telling you what's going to happen.
So this needs to go to the Commissioner's Court.
So the agreement between the county and the LGC would go to Commissioner's Court. The agreement between the LGC and Transdev would, once it was drafted, be ready to go for execution by yourself. And the reason being that with the start date goal of January 24, we want to have the contract approved and in place so that Transdev can continue with, they've been working in good faith because of all the other measures that Reina mentioned that the county staff have taken to try and get it across the finish line, but we haven't gotten it there yet.
So Commissioner's Court first, then the agreement.
There's two different agreements though.
Okay. But
So
one doesn't have to be.
Well, I actually think, and again, we need to work out the details.
Yeah.
And I need to meet with staff and then eventually at some point with the county attorney's office. But Chair, just to your point, I do think that for maximum assurances to EPATs, we would need it approved by county first,
Right.
before we turn around and sign the agreement with Transdev.
And I know that our county agreements typically have clauses in there that, that in the event that we fail to provide funding for this, that the contract is terminated.
Right.
I think maybe we mirror that language here with Transdev and also with the county. They'll probably mirror that language with Transdev, so that there's always, if we don't have money, we don't have money, sorry. That's it. You can't make us pay anything that we don't have it. And then we could probably talk to the county attorney's office to front load, to provide, usually only do reimbursement, but if it's possible, because this is grant funding, to get 1 month equivalent of payment at the execution of the agreement so that we don't run into cash flow issues with our fund. So effectively that money would come in and then we would start asking for reimbursement thereafter, but we'd be 1 month ahead so that we always have enough cash to pay the bills so as to not create any delays with the county auditors.
Right.
What's it? How do I?
I can get with you offline.
Okay.
Yeah. So clearly, the way this item is drafted is to allow for maximum expediency. Because now that you've approved the transit service plan, and that's why I said it's very important to have that language there, because everything you do the rest of the year is probably going to be tied to your transit service plan. And one of the first things is this contract. So the motion is to allow the chair, after legal review, to negotiate and execute a transportation services agreement between EPATs and Transdev, and to sign all other related documents. And that's the contract that we're talking about here, so that we can, help the county out because they can't contract with Transdev without going through the procurement process. And that's lengthy, and that maximizes one of our main features as a local government corporation. So yeah, and I will tell you that, as I continue to work through it, I'm going to view it from some of the issues I just raised. Like, for example, I do think that I'm going to recommend that the county sign theirs first before we sign ours. And then, like Mr. Landeros just mentioned, I'm going to keep an eye out for clauses where, like what he suggested, it's front loaded so that we always have a month's worth of sales in our account so that we can pay Transdev without delay.
Okay, so do I hear a motion as described by Mr. Estrada?
So moved.
Second. I have a motion and second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, this brings us to agenda item 13, and this is where you will discuss and take appropriate action on the 5-year strategic and financial plan as presented by TTI. Michael, did you want to run the screen slides, or would you like for us to?
I can do it if that's fine with you guys.
There's backup to this that we have right.
Let me bring that up.
Okay, shall I begin?
Yes.
All right. Well, good to virtually see you all. Sorry I'm not able to be there today, but I want to share with you a proposed scope of work that TTI prepared for a 5-year strategic and financial plan for EPATS. And so I'm keeping it short and sweet today. I did provide the board with a full draft of the scope, right? It contains details of the proposed tasks and subtasks and activities and deliverables. But I figured the PowerPoint should be upper level. So I wanted to lay out just first a few key assumptions, then we'll walk through the tasks and phases of the strategic plan creation. I'll show you the proposed timeline as well as the proposed budget, and we can discuss and I'll take any questions. So just a few key assumptions that we made in developing the proposed scope of work. And ironically, this comes back to a question about committees. You'll see in the scope of work, we mentioned something called a strategic planning committee. Of course, that is an option. The board can let us know whether this would be a function maybe the executive committee would serve or others. But we felt, again, that there was enough points of contact and need for frequent communication with a subgroup of people from the EPATS board that could be one, really the technical committee to help guide the process, albeit, all decision-making authority would be with the board. And this committee would be a first point of review. So for any TTI deliverables, like for instance, our very first draft of the strategic and financial plan would be put in front of this smaller group. And that's an assumption of the proposal. It doesn't have to be that way, but I wanted to put that out up front. A couple other key assumptions, were that we, based on all the work that's been done, for instance, what David even presented earlier on the task order 5 update, the prior studies, transit service planning studies, that those studies and service proposals that have been put in front of EPATS, really they are adequate, and there's no need to do a sort of blank slate approach. So when it comes to figuring out what services are going to be implemented over the 5 years, all the prior work serves as the baseline, and we don't need to do a big new service planning study for the region. And therefore, we did not scope out any new data generation using only existing data. For instance, we did not scope out sort of doing any new surveys or customer outreach or modeling, really just using existing data if any analyses need to be done to support the plan, as well as no significant public engagement, right, as a part of the development of the strategic plan. Again, all of these things are up for board discussion, but I wanted to put them up in front of you as part of the underlying assumptions in the scope of work. Any questions on these before I move on?
No.
Okay, so there's actually a total of 9 tasks proposed, but in order to boil them down, they're organized into 3 phases, called preparation, creation, and finalization. So in each of these phases, TTI would be working with the EPATS board and/or the strategic planning committee, if one is desired, to help first prepare to create the 5-year strategic plan. Now, this particular document, as we currently envision it, would lay out, right, the goals and objectives of EPATS, the planned organizational structure of EPATS over the next 5 years, the service plans over the next 5 years, as well as the costs, revenues that would be over the next 5 years. In order to put all this together, we believe we need to do some preparation work. So there'd be project kickoff activities, making sure that we're all on the same page regarding how the plan is going to come together and what sections the plan would likely have. We would develop a preliminary framework for the plan and discuss those underlying assumptions in any kind of document of this breadth. There will be a lot of assumptions that have to be made along the way. So we want to make sure that we lay all those out up front and are started on the right foot. we plan to develop what we would call a final framework for the strategic plan. So that would lay out, yeah, this is exactly what we think will be in the strategic plan, and these are the assumptions we're going to make, and this is the sections that you're going to see. And then ultimately bring that before the EPATS board members in a workshop or a working session of some kind, where you can see what, this concept of what we think will go into this plan. Based on that feedback, we move into the creation of the plan phase, which is just a series of drafts. First, a first draft of the 5-year plan that likely would go, again, we scoped this to go in front of the committee that would be focusing on this particular project. Then take that feedback and turn it into a second draft plan. And then this would be submitted to the full board for discussion. And we also scoped an actual workshop with the EPATS board, as well as potentially meetings with local leaders. So if desired, it might make sense to put the strategic plan as a draft in front of additional leaders in the region that are part of the EPATS member jurisdictions, in order to get them up to speed, make them comfortable with the 5-year vision and goals, objectives, and finances of EPATS. And then based on the feedback from the workshop, as well as the meetings with local leaders, then finalizing the 5-year plan, we also propose to provide templates and tools that make updating, for instance, the financial plan, very easy for EPATS to do. So turning the document over to you in a way that then EPATS can continue doing updates to it, so it becomes a living document that is regularly updated throughout EPATS's future. And then wrapping everything up in terms of final report and training key staff in order to how to update the plan. You can see the proposed timeline here in the next slide. So it's a 12-month project as currently proposed. You can see the 3 phases. So right now we have this as November through February or so, the preparation phase. The creation phase would be March through mid-July of next year. So by mid-July, you would have really that final draft, if you would. And then finalizing the actual document itself would occur towards the fall of next year. We anticipate that the document would be something that's suitable for public consumption, right? So it'd follow EPATS branding guidelines, right? It'd be something that would be able to be posted to a website, viewed, have a positive public appearance. In terms of the budget, this is the proposed budget by task. So I won't get into every single task here, but you can see the different elements and how much we estimate that each element will cost, for a total of, we estimate, about $145,000 to do the entire plan. And that's it in terms of my comments. So I'd like to open it up for questions and discussion. Back to you.
Thank you, Michael. Any questions from board members? Rena, you look.
There's no questions, but I think that ultimately this is for the board to decide, this scope of work works. But then there's also the discussion of payment, right? Who's paying for it? So it's going to be kind of the same thing even on the next item, but just kind of throw that out there.
So far as the payment, what do you mean, who's going to pay for it?
EPATS, or does the county need to? I want you to find some money somewhere.
Is there, and that's a good question. Is there an argument to make why the county should pay for it, or?
There's no argument, but I would say that it's not budgeted for, wasn't foreseen as something that that the county was gonna cover. So I think that I would have to speak with our budget department to see if we do have the funding for it.
Then it goes to the commissioner's court. If it's okay with the board, can we try that first? Then see if we have any kind of issue with it.
Okay.
With your permission, may I comment
Yes.
real quick? So thank you. So Michael Walk with TTI. The financial plan that was submitted to EPATS that you all actually just approved did actually include a line item for the strategic plan development as a cost to EPATS as a whole. So it was actually anticipating the fact that you might have wanted this. We added it as an administrative cost of EPATS. So it actually was in the budget for EPATS, right? Currently, though, TTI and EPATS do not have a contractual arrangement of any kind for us to do direct work for EPATS. So just wanted to make sure that was understood.
Oh, I think it's a big thing, and I think it's already been approved.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I was just going to ask if
The meeting minutes? No, okay, so we'll revisit that right after all the items.
no. On if it was going to be an eligible cost under the contributions and the funding that we have.
And we'll have an agenda item for the annual budget where we can have, I think, that discussion further. But I think the one question, or what Michael and I had been discussing prior to, is just with these funds that are available, how is it part of the monies that are directly allocated to El Paso County, or is there going to be some that are, because as of right now, the budget of the contribution amounts, Sophie and I were looking at it, and it won't cover the 145 plus the reduction, plus the next agenda item, which talks about reduction of services. So I know Michael said it's in the budget, but I think that relates to the annual budget that we were talking about that needs a little bit more work on that. Is that correct, Michael?
Yes. So if the county was doing this work on its own and wanted a 5-year service plan, right, it'd be an administrative expense reimbursable under federal grants, right? So as a transit agency, studies, management studies, service planning studies are valid administrative expenses, seek for federal reimbursement at 80%. So that was the assumption that was made in the financial plan for FY24, right, was that federal funds would be used partially to pay for this study because it is a valid administrative expense. So that's, the assumption is not that this is 145 coming out of, it's all local money. It's actually 80% federal and 20% local.
Okay, but again, it's already in the budget and it's already has been approved. Is that correct, Michael?
It was a line item in the budget that was just approved by the board, correct?
Well, I don't think they've approved the budget yet.
I think what we're speaking on is.
That's a good point.
The fiscal year
Transit.
Service plan,
Yes.
and then you saw the chart.
Yeah.
It's essentially in there, but
Yes.
it's really coming from, I guess, an admin line through a grant. So I get what Michael's saying.
Yes. So I understand what Michael's saying too. But just to be clear, we have not adopted a budget yet. We did adopt the transit service plan that breaks it all down. And I guess what Michael's explaining is the numbers in the transit service plan account for this expenditure. Correct, Michael?
Correct. That's a good way of putting it. Thank you.
So that's good because there is a way for EPATS to pay for this on its own. But those funds are not available yet. They're not in our budget, correct, Annette? I mean, they're not in our account. We don't have that money yet.
Yes.
Is that right?
Correct. Uh-huh.
Okay. So
We have to do the agreements.
we have to do the transportation funding agreements. We have to get those funds. And then my understanding is also that staff is going to table the budget issue because we still need to meet with TTI to discuss this some more. So I think, as your legal counsel, all I'm saying is this is on the agenda today for you to, discuss and take action on it. Action could be, let's direct legal counsel to negotiate a contract with TTI for these services. And I think that would be a good thing. But I think first we really need to understand, and I know Michael probably understands it already, but for us to understand how the funding is going to work for EPATs, and then secondly, make sure we already have those funds before we sign the contract. So by having approved the transit service plan today, the funding agreements are going to be circulated to the entities that take into account the number that Michael just mentioned. But then we still need the member entities to take that to their governing boards, have it approved, and then receive the funds into our bank account. So maybe it would be safer, to in today's action to allow us to move forward with exploring and negotiating a contract with TTI for the 5-year strategic plan, but not sign it yet until all those other precursors, if you want to call them, occur first, so that when you sign, the funding is there. And while there is a roadmap to the funding right now, it hasn't been effectuated.
So the motion would read as you just stated.
Is it a motion, or is it just direction, guidance?
It's whatever you feel more comfortable with, sir. If you want a motion for, CYA, great, or we can just take it as direct. We now have a clear direction.
Yeah, and I think it'd probably be incumbent while we're doing this to develop a master agreement with TTI for the LGC, similar to what other agencies have, and then we can just execute task orders. It's what the county does with TTI, where we just do. I think others like it's just this little monkey behind it. And I think it'd be easier in the future because then we just get a scope of work and a fee schedule. We just ask the board to approve that.
Right.
And the terms of the master agreement govern.
Yes, yes, sir. That would be ideal because I suspect, we're going to be working with TTI a lot. So you have a master agreement and you just do task orders thereafter. You review them periodically, but it's good.
So then it'll be directions from the board to staff.
Yes.
To complete that. Everybody okay with it?
That's correct.
All right, well, thank you, Michael. Let me go ahead and get back. Okay, so then we'll move on to agenda item 14. And I know Jose had asked about agenda item 17, so I don't know if I need to read that in right now as well, or
You want to go ahead and read it in, that way we can discuss.
Okay. So in addition to 14, we have agenda item 17, which is discuss and take appropriate action following the City of Socorro's decision not to join EPATS. So going back to agenda item 14, this one is to discuss and take appropriate action on the proposed scope of work for the reduction and removal of transit services for non-member entities as presented by TTI. And Michael Walk will present this as well.
Okay, thank you. This is Michael Walk with TTI. So this is an additional scope of work to discuss, and it's regarding creating a service reduction or removal policy for non-member entities. The setup is pretty much the same, where I'll just show you the task, the timeline, budget, and discussion. The reason that we're proposing a scope of work is that actually having a policy in place and implementation guidance in place, we think is very important for the board, so that decisions are made in a consistent manner, right? In the event that localities, jurisdictions choose to not join EPATS. So in this case, it's a little bit shorter, smaller project. It's 5 tasks, and particularly, just a kickoff, which is task 1. Task 2, doing some research and industry standards and practices. EPATS can learn from other regions that have set up similar governance structures in terms of what their policies are, what their procedures are for, handling the cases of non-member regions. There when it comes to potentially removing or reducing service levels in particular geographies. There are implications when it comes to compliance with FTA, Federal Transit Administration rules and regulations, as well as TxDOT requirements. For example, right, there are Title VI implications to make sure that the service reductions don't have disproportionate impact on low-income individuals or create disparate burdens on people in minority groups. There's also Americans with Disabilities Act requirements, et cetera. So we wanted to make sure those were all documented. And then putting all that together in a tech memo number 1. And based on that, we would put a framework for the policy in front of EPATS so that you could see what we're thinking is necessary to be a part of that policy. Task 3 is to develop a first draft then. So once we have the framework established, we actually then fill it out, right? And put a first draft together of what this policy would look like. And, when we say service reduction policy, I want to clarify that our intent, at least our understanding at this point, is that this document or policy is not merely a policy document, but also includes standard procedures for implementing the service change or service reduction, analyzing the sort of the cost and the benefit between reducing service in a given geography versus what the implications are on EPATS. For instance, if service is stopped in a given city, the buses probably still are going to have to drive through that city. And what does that look like in reality? And does that mean that people from other cities are no longer able to go to that city and make the return trip? So right, there's a lot to think about in terms of the implications of service reduction, service removal. So this document would help lay those decision points out, develop a framework for decision making and analysis so that EPATS can make consistent decisions. We put that first draft in front of EPATS, do a presentation, then develop a final policy in task 4 and do what we're calling a pilot test. So we're proposing that, it's one thing to write a policy, it's another to see how it would work in reality when applied. And we propose that once the policy is drafted, we'd essentially identify regions that, what if, right? So what if service was decided to be discontinued in a given city? What would that look like, right? What analyses would we do? And we would need to collect some data. So this does require a little bit of how would this impact the riders in that region, riders outside of that region no longer being able to access that region. And then document the pilot test results. Now, we anticipate there probably be 2 regions that we would look at from our understanding, Socorro, of course, being one of them based on the agenda item later. And then document the results of that pilot test in another tech memo so that EPATS can see what would this look like in reality if we did do a service reduction or removal. And then last, from the feedback from EPATS based on the results of the pilot test, deliver a final policy document that then becomes the guiding principles for this issue for EPATS. Timeline, again, you can ignore the month, so to speak. But we anticipated this being somewhere around a 7-month project, particularly because the pilot test actually collecting some new data requires some additional time. But if we started as early as November, we think we'd be tying up by May of next year, early next year. The anticipated budget's around $72,600. You can see the breakdown by task. And that is my overview of the scope of work for this particular policy creation. And again, we provided a full text of the draft of the scope, I believe. So hopefully you have that in your hands. I'll stop there. Back to you.
Thank you, Michael. I do have a question. This amount has not been budgeted, is that correct?
Right, Michael,
Yeah, if you're asking me, correct, that this is not something that was in the financial plan of the numbers that you saw previously.
So I agree with you, Michael, that there's a lot that goes into it. And so far mentioning things like people that want to be dropped off there and want to go back home or wherever. So it's more than what I initially thought. So because of this unexpected expense and maybe possible savings in the future, how do we address this?
I think I would still check. I'll check with for the county to take this, you know, how we do some of our other task orders. We already have that agreement in place with TCI, so if we have the funding, we could probably get this executed and actually begin either late November or mid-November, depending on what's available. So, I mean, I'm okay with checking that for us if the board's okay.
And then if we have a meeting in November, we can bring that back if there's some, the funding's a consideration still.
Mr. Chair, if I may, would we also have the opportunity to evaluate this as another administrative study, because this just, you know, speaks to kind of the resilience of our transit system as a regional transit system, that there may be times where we need to reduce or remove transit in a given area. So I'm wondering if there's potential and capacity to proceed similar to the previous task order, where we start developing this master agreement with, you know, tasks 1 and 2, task 1 being the strategic plan, task 2 being the transit reduction removal policy, and then we just work on building that into the funding that we're all kind of from the funds that we're receiving, because this speaks to the resilience of our system, like I said. So I think it would be incumbent that it would make sense for us to do that as the LGC, as opposed to just from the county.
Okay, so it really would follow the same path as what we spoke about earlier.
I think so.
So in remembering what we spoke about earlier is just a direction to the staff to bring back that information for our next meeting.
The agreement and then the budget. I guess the question is, is there room for this study in the LGC budget?
Michael, would that affect the contribution amounts that were presented today?
I mean, technically, yes, in a marginal way. Again, if this is considered an administrative expense of running transit, it's 20% of the cost would need to be covered by local funding, which would impact the contribution amounts in a small way. Yeah.
15,000 local contribution amount.
We do have, we will have some funds that are unexpended from 23. So I think that might be a path we would rather take, to use some of the unexpended balance rather than revise this chart that we're going to present it to you.
We do that reconciliation.
Well, we just need, I mean, we can have that ready for sure for the November meeting. Because we'll have all of the bills paid for 23 by then.
And then I think maybe following the same breakdown would make sense, like how we divide that 15,000, and then kind of have the funds reconciled, and then have the proportion that would go back to each partner agency, and then have what the $15,000 looks like spread across all agencies as well.
Right. I guess just to add, like Mr. Lundell was saying, is that, you know, this reduction policy really becomes an operational component. And so I think that in terms of priorities, I think this one would be first. In my opinion, you know, if we had to do the prioritization.
Over the strategic plan.
Yes, exactly. Right. And so I think that, you know, going back and making the appropriate adjustments for all the members would be the thing to do. Like, I think that at the end of the day is that we really thank that the county's participation, but I think that at some point in time, you know, we need to have a standalone component of having the autonomy of the LGC to afford, you know, all these capacities that we need in terms to provide that service.
I also worry about any agency, municipality feeling that it's the county just kind of coming after any service area or anything like that, because really this is a regional transit issue. It's a regional transit discussion. having it come through the LGC in partnership with TTI removes a lot of that, removes a lot of the teeth in those arguments, I think. Because it's really just it's a transit issue.
Yeah, and I like the way it was presented because it's very methodical. It's no retaliatory kind of flavor to it at all. So, Mr. Estrada, we would just direct staff to do what they talked about.
Yes.
Just
It's a
budgeting,
directive,
right?
so
It's just a matter of
the truth is there's no
budgeting
action
and doing.
on the item. And then there's, I think, staff understands the directive, correct?
My understanding is that we just need to make sure that we have the funding within the LGC.
That's right.
And then
Yeah.
hopefully with the adoption of the budget, we can come and maybe the drafting of the TTI master agreement, we can get that executed at the next meeting. And if there's budget, then we can also execute the scope of works as they're presented to you today.
And Michael or David, I know that TTI has draft master agreements that you can share with us, so we're not starting from scratch. We're just reviewing that on our end, and then it has including the templates for the task orders and everything else. So I think it sounds possible to me that by next meeting we'll have task orders and master agreements to consider action on, and I think it's just about finding the funding source, making sure that we're all comfortable with that, and then go from there.
So it would be no action for item number 14 and 17.
All right. Okay, so that'll take us down to agenda item 15. And so I had a certain idea in my head in terms of how we could present the annual budget for you all, but in having a conversation with Michael, I think Michael's still there. There's still some items that we need to work out, I think, with TTI, and so I'm asking if we can table this agenda item for November. I do know that as of right now, based on the plan that you all approved, minus El Paso County, we should be anticipating $177,700 in contributions once we provide the agreements, and if all the councils are in line with coming on board, which include Anthony, Clint, Horizon City, San Elizario, and Vinton. So I just wanted to let you know that these are the amounts that we're anticipating receiving for. For 24, I still need to verify El Paso County's amounts, but at this point, we're not prepared to give you a budget because I don't know exactly how much expenditures we're anticipating versus the revenues that we're bringing in. And so, Michael, is there anything else you would want to add to that? Oh, you're muted. I'm sorry.
Okay, and hopefully that's better.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think you covered it well. Certainly the key issue is just the logistics of how the cash gets passed from one entity to the another, reimbursed federally or not, which is why we're not quite there yet in terms of putting everything together today. And I apologize that I wasn't able to get you that, Annette.
Sure. If I may, just because I'd like for Michael to hear this. When I spoke with Annette about adopting the annual budget, one of my concerns was to make sure that whatever our annual budget looks like, that it aligns with whatever requirements Michael is aware of on the federal grant side, and federal funds. And it may be that there's nothing that we need to do, but just wanted Michael to know that, I was just wanted to make sure that whatever budget we end up adopting for the LGC, that it complies with all the federal strings that are attached to the funds that will be coming through the LGC, if any. So.
By not adopting it today, Reina, Jesus, are we putting you in a bind?
I don't believe so.
No. So we'll take no action on it?
No action.
No, okay.
Is it procedurally better to postpone because the bylaws say that we have to consider action on budget during our annual meeting?
Yeah, it would be. Part of the reason why I wasn't too concerned was we haven't adopted a budget previously, correct?
Sure. Yeah.
So it was like we haven't done it from the inception of the entity. But now that we're being more, adhering to our own rules more, sure. I think a motion, if you want a motion to postpone the item.
Okay.
I'll make that motion. Do you have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Okay, so now we have agenda item 16, and this is to discuss and take appropriate action on branding efforts presented by Barracuda Public Relations. The ad hoc committee did meet with Barracuda last week. They did select a mood board, so that was one of the first step in the branding efforts. However, we're not quite there yet, and because you all have been so gracious with your time to allow us to have our next meeting in November, we would like to table this agenda item as well, just to ensure that we give Barracuda enough time to provide you with the available options in terms of the logos. And so Israel Inovali with Barracuda is here in case you'd like to add anything else to it.
Commissioner and the board, really we just want to bring a quality product to you. We threw some ideas around based on the ad hoc committee. The ad hoc committee was able to meet once in that interim period from when we took action to today. And so what we want to do is ensure that we provide the time so we can get that feedback and then execute it to the fullest of our capabilities. Right now, I think we have 2 working models of the logo concept. So we do want to bring back to the ad hoc, get that feedback before we present to the full board, make sure we're on the right track. Mainly because I don't want to bring a logo that you guys are just like, absolutely, you guys are that way and we want to go this way, and we start from ground, phase 1. So
Yeah, I see it as very, very important. I mean, this is what's going to define who we are. But I've got no problem with postponing it. Do we say no action or postpone?
I would say no action, but I don't know if anyone has any concerns about doing postponement. I mean, okay, no action.
No action.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
So actually, I'm sorry. You go ahead, Mayor. I was going to say the discussion minutes.
Okay.
You can do that.
Okay. So then this next item is just discuss and take appropriate action on fiscal agent's financial report. I do not have any new invoices to present to you all today, so there is nothing to report on this item.
So we say no action on this one also?
No action.
No. Okay, so this will take us to agenda item 19, which is,
Actually,
I'm so sorry.
I think what we should do now is, I think Mr. Landeros found an error in the
minutes. Okay.
So if you all want to revisit that, a motion to reconsider.
Okay.
Someone needs to make a motion to reconsider approval of the minutes of the special meeting of October 4th, 2023.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
So the notice in the people present that one of Commissioner Leon's staffers was listed there, as well as one of the planning and development staff. They were not in the meeting, so it was just to remove George Reyes and Jackie Butler from the people who were present in person. I think those are the only ones that were not. But with that revision, I would make a motion to approve as revised.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, so coming back to agenda item 19, this is the updates and reports from Paso County Transit staff regarding ongoing transit projects and other transit matters. Marina Mayoga.
Marina Mayoga, Transportation Planner. I know this should be quick since we pretty much covered TTI task orders, and so I know I generally show you our ridership chart. So now that fiscal year 23 has been completed, and we do September to August because that's the TxDOT fiscal year. So what you're seeing is there essentially that fiscal year time frame. And so we just compared ridership from fiscal year 22 to 2023 and had an increase in our ridership overall of 35.17%.
That's quite a bit.
Which is a significant increase in our ridership over this period of time. And so we also just wanted to note that generally speaking in terms of comparing those 2 years, August is our highest ridership. So I don't know if that has to do anything with going back to school. Like generally that's when back to school starts. And then we also show our increased riderships during the summer months. But for the past few years, 3 to 4 years, even when it was just the county making that approval, we've had free fares during the summer. So it could be that you're off, kids are off during the summer, so maybe you're actually having the kids and their families riding the bus together, which increases your ridership. But I just wanted to, oh yeah, we have new fare boxes, so maybe, I don't know if that was with our ridership, but it actually, you'll actually count it more, so maybe there's not that type of error. And then, so that's it for ridership, and I'll let Jesus give the other updates.
And so Sunlight Transit Planner, for the Wi-Fi, it is ready, it's going. I have been checking the cloud that we have, the cloud-based. I haven't figured out how to logistically see what bus goes on what route because we alternate our buses. So that's something that I'm working on, how to show you data of what route is actually using more Wi-Fi. I did have our Fresh Transdev have their drivers hook up to the Wi-Fi, see the connectivity, and according to the GM, she said that everything, so far, everything's okay. I have been checking on the cloud. I've seen the gigabytes used, and it's a lot. So they are using it, yes. So I guess we had said the end of the summer, but we had to get it. We had to get the agreement. We had to get it in Spanish as well. TTI helped out with that, and so that's what took a little bit longer.
I wonder if that's contributing a little bit to the uptick in the ridership.
It could be. I mean, we implemented, well, it's been up and running technically on the system for a couple of months. We're not really seeing that. I don't think we're seeing that data yet. But it might increase now that maybe, because we haven't advertised it out. We haven't put any flyers out on the bus. We haven't made any posts on social media. We haven't really told the public that it's there. But I'm assuming that if you're on your phone, sometimes, you know, you look for Wi-Fi, or maybe you're looking for your hotspot, but then you notice that it's on the bus. Maybe that's how they're connecting, and then word of mouth, essentially, for your regular riders. And we just didn't want to post it yet, just until the user agreement was in place in both English and Spanish, and then it was agreed upon between both legal and legal counsel. And so we're basically at that end stage. And so I think our next steps would be to advertise that and just issue a date. I'm not sure if we can do it by November 1st, but within the first couple weeks of November, I don't see why we wouldn't be telling the customers and having a sign on the bus that says this is the Wi-Fi name, and so you can, you know, free Wi-Fi, just click the name and accept the user agreement.
And we're gonna keep it basic. It's gonna say bus 324 Wi-Fi. That's all. That's all. Every bus is gonna be labeled individually. That way it's easier for the riders.
That's good news.
And then something that we'll probably have to talk to Barracuda, see if they could include that Wi-Fi on board under the branding, so that way we know it's free for any route. I'm sorry.
I know it's big because anywhere I go, my grandson, they have Wi-Fi here.
One of the TTI studies, a lot of the younger generations riding the bus now. So that's one of the studies that, you know, TTI does for us, and that's something that assists us in how we have to just keep on evolving. And then the next one was the passenger shelters. That one, we are coordinating with TechStop to see if we could find some additional funding to revise the drawings.
It's to revise the plan set with the removal of Socorro. Yes. Socorro was included in the original plans with stops and shelters, and so I think now we need to get those revised before it's actually put out to bid.
And there, I think I touched on it before, the potential savings, I guess, would be nice if we identified them.
The savings actually would help in us upgrading some of our category 2s to category 1s or 3s to 2s. So in the other areas where we've already identified just the bench, maybe we want to actually, maybe it was shy based on the data that TTI collected. Maybe it was shy of two users to be a category 2. So then maybe that would be one of, you know, we'll see them in the priority list based off of the data. And then you can say, well, let's make the 3 a 2. And then, or let's make this 2 a 1 because it was only shy of 2 users or 2 riders based on the data that we used to identify a category 1. So I don't know that we'll have much savings, and it is a grant that we do need to utilize. So I think that we're just going to look to like upgrade other categories in the other areas.
And to add to that, all the environmental clearances have been done, so we shouldn't have no issues with that.
Good. So, good job. Is that it?
Yep.
Yeah, that's it.
It's awfully good news, board members. Thank you. You're lucky we're meeting today. The Dallas game was on Monday.
It's over, right? I'm just kidding.
So agenda item 20, there's no executive session. So we're at agenda item 21. Before we adjourn though, just as a reminder, we will then meet on November the 15th at 1:30 p.m. here at the courthouse.
I need to get it'll be in the courthouse. We just don't know which room will be available for us.
And I'll bring waters next time, I'm sorry.
You know, I apologize for that. I should have thought of that.
I didn't think of it either, I'm sorry.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion?
All those in favor? Any opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you,
very
everyone.
much. It was a long agenda.
I apologize for stepping out. It's like long, started.
So we got it out before 4:30.
Yes, thank you.